make your heart beat fast. Turning over hourglass after hourglass till they're gone.
Libby, first, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. And I have to ask right off the top, because I speak to a lot about it, how are you doing? How are you holding up throughout this crazy world with COVID-19 that has changed everything, especially for musicians when it comes to live shows and traveling?
Well, I in a very small personal way, I'm doing pretty well. I have a nice place that I live, and I've been spending a lot of this time off the road kind of experiencing domestic rituals that I've not had the opportunity to experience for about 7 years now that we've been touring full time. So there are bright sides of it, but I also feel a lot of dread and helplessness especially about the future of the industry. I think a lot of people are just holding on right now, but I don't imagine we'll be back to touring the way we used to for another year or maybe longer. And I worry that the venues will be gone, and a lot of the bands who don't have independent means will have gotten other jobs. And I just worry about, the kind of the diversity and the vivaciousness of the whole enterprise of music making.
It is
in the medium term.
Yeah, it's a completely different world now, and it scares a lot of people. I'm just curious, what exactly did you guys have planned for the summer before all of this happened?
We had a pretty normal, busy summer. We were going to play a bunch of festivals and do some outdoor series. But the big thing for us is that we were going to start an album release tour probably in late August. And we were anticipating being on the road from August through probably May, basically solid that whole time. So that has been a total 180 from our expectation 6 months ago or 8 months ago.
Like I said, such a different world. And speaking of different world too, and again, I've been asking a lot of musicians I've been speaking with their thoughts on, not just COVID-19 and how it's affected them personally, but also just the way we're seeing things now. I mean, racism being spoken with in such a different manner. People arguing about masks and no masks. The things that we're seeing with the U.S. election and, the Karens and Kevins, and there's so many things that I know for myself. There have been times where I just said, you know what, this weekend I'm not going to be on social media. I'm not going to watch the news. I just can't handle it. I'm just curious, what do you think about all this? And this is all really in effect for this last year.
Yeah, it is such a wild time, especially to be on the internet. And it feels like most of our lives are on the internet right now, since there's so little we can do socially in person. So I feel like that's probably contributing to the badness, is that everybody's sort of living their quote unquote real life virtually more than ever. I think one of the things that's really disheartening to me about all these very complex and interwoven kind of discussions of the moment is that I feel like it's easy for power to go untouched and unchanged by those discussions. It's I feel like many of the discussions become either they are sort of aesthetic, superficial conversations, or they become kind of enclosed vehicles for just infighting. And I'm a socialist and a leftist, and I really believe in the necessity of some level of unity between the people in fighting the power, in these broad terms. And I was hoping that this moment would be kind of a jumping off point for organizing. And I think it's been difficult because of the actual restrictions of coronavirus, but I feel sad that more of our discussions haven't been about like what are the what kind of world can we envision that's totally different. I think there's some really important conversations happening, especially about race and policing. But it's easy for the powers that would be more comfortable untouched. I think it's easy for them to divert those conversations into kind of aesthetic and nitpicky places.
Couldn't agree with you more. You see it all the time. Could not agree with you more. Bang on. Absolutely. But, the good thing is, though, that artists, again, like yourselves, aren't holding back. You guys are releasing music, so at least it gives us those moments of just sort of putting all of that aside and just feeling something good and just enjoying something new and refreshing. So thank you to you guys so much for putting out a new album. When did you guys actually record this? I'm just curious. And how did COVID-19 affect in what you wanted to do with this album?
Well, we recorded it all. We were finishing up mixing of this album when coronavirus hit the United States in a big way. So we recorded the bulk of it in the summer and fall of last year. And we had actually already decided, we were originally slated to put it out in May of 2020. And we had already decided to push it back to the fall because we just didn't feel like we were finished mixing it. And that ended up being good, too, because there was not much to do in May as far as an album release. Not that things have changed substantially by now, but there are some people who are getting creative about, like, drive-in concerts and live streams or pre-recorded live shows and stuff like that. So it gives us a little more of an avenue for like direct engagement, although it's not really anything compared to real live shows on a tour.
At least it's something. And again, I absolutely agree with you too. And it's going to be kind of tough for some areas too once the winter hits to do the drive-in. So I think there's probably going to be more of the virtual. So, but we are talking about a new album. Congratulations again. What's the new album called?
Thank you.
And what's the album about musically?
It's called Mipso. It's self-titled. It's our, I guess it's our 5th album. Is that right? But it felt like we actually didn't have a ton of discussion about the name. I think somebody threw out the idea of self-titled, and we were all like, oh yeah, that feels right. I think because we had a kind of a growing apart period as individual band members over the last few years, where we were kind of, we were reckoning with the end of our youth a little bit and starting to think about like, oh, am I gonna be in this band for my life, and is this always going to be, the central part of my working identity? And we all struggled with that, I think, individually a little bit. And on this album, we came back to the recording studio and started talking about, songs that moved us. And I think it sort of grounded us. It reminded us of like why we like to make music together and why it's a good home for all of us creatively.
I meant to make it before, but the making's no good anymore. I meant to make it by now, but the making's no good anyhow.
And so we decided on a self-titled album because it felt like a reintroduction in some sense, maybe more for us than for the listeners.
What's
and musically, say that again.
No. Sorry. No, I interrupted you. And musically, please.
So I was just going to say that musically, there's a kind of like pop, like a pop sensibility and a kind of like winking sort of half seriousness about a lot of it, but the subject matter is still like relatively, I don't want to say heavy, but it's like the big questions of life still that we're struggling with. It's like I think we all wanted to have, we had this realization that we spend so much time on the road, and it would be nice to have fun songs to play on stage, but we didn't want to make kind of empty, like music that was empty of meaning. So this was kind of, we didn't really talk about it beforehand, but it's like all of our songwriting gravitated toward some kind of poppier styling to songs that are about, you know, all the gory messiness that great songs usually are about, heartbreak and self-questioning and growing up and reflecting on your childhood and on death and on the collapse of the planet and all that stuff.
Now, isn't that interesting that these themed stories in this album being released now, because I can guarantee you almost everybody on the planet has been thinking and feeling that way during this COVID-19. I think this is perfect timing.
Oh, well, I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, it is like such a reflective time for everyone. It's hard to even avoid reflecting about yourself and the direction of your life these days. Absolutely.
I was going to ask earlier, though, what's the name of the latest single? And I'm just trying to think of it because I saw a music video that I thought was very, very cool and very artistic. And I was wondering when that video was actually recorded, too.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, the name was Hourglass, the video that just came out. And we made that this summer in Durham, North Carolina, where two of the band members and our drummer all live currently. And it was so hot. And if you watch the video, you'll see that it mostly consists of us like sprinting through the woods and on the streets. And I really regretted having chosen a pantsuit as my costume because I was just like, we were drenched by the end of every scene.
Oh my goodness, I'm going to look at that video completely differently now. You realize that, right?
It was so uncomfortable.
Did you have to choose that area because of COVID-19?
Yeah, that was the place that made the most sense because a couple of us were already here and we know this area the best. This is where Durham and the surrounding towns are where we started out as a band, where we went to college together. So we just had more connections and more local knowledge. And we were trying to, because of COVID-19, we were trying to shoot mostly outdoors and had to like figure out good, streets with not too much traffic and parks and trails that we could use and empty parking lots. Actually, it was the perfect time to find empty urban scenes because there's so many places that nobody's allowed to go to anymore or has any reason to go to, like a big public parking lot.
One of the things I'm just loving is the fact that artists like yourselves who are trying to figure out, well, how do we put these videos together and how creative people have become because of COVID, whereas ideas that they probably would never even thought of before now make sense, and then suddenly they come up with something that is so amazing. So again, you got to be patting yourselves on the back for what you guys ended up doing.
Oh, thanks. Well, I think another big part of it, and I think a lot, like you're saying, a lot of people have been getting more into their video making these days, is that in the past you have to tour all the time to make enough money as a band. I mean, unless you get really famous, and so usually filming music videos is something that you like squeeze in between tours or even while you're on tour. So this was the first time in our history as a band, almost a decade together, that we had weeks and months even that were just wide open. And we ended up filming 6 music videos for this album. And in the past, we've maybe done 1 or 2. So it's sort of like, it changes the whole logic. I mean, it also is it's kind of like hilarious because we're not bringing in any money, and so it's a funny time to be spending money. But as a musician, you want to be putting things out into the world somehow, and normally you'd be doing that by actually playing music for people. But the video making feels like, okay, at least I'm keeping the wheels turning. You know,
keep the brand alive. That's what it's all about. Keep the brand alive.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. For better or for worse.
Will there be any virtual performances for you guys coming up in the next couple of months?
Yes, I'm talking to you right now from our the scene of our virtual performance that we are getting ready to film this evening. We got together at this really cool old music venue. There used to be a textile mill, and it's called the Hall River Ballroom, and it's out here in Saxapahaw, North Carolina, which is a little ways from Durham. And so we're in this big empty venue trying to set up like really cool stage lighting and all the accoutrements of a live show, except there's no audience, obviously.
Cannot wait to see this. When do you get a chance to be part of this?
We are filming tonight, and we filmed some yesterday, and then the show, I'm going to get the date wrong. I think the show is out right at the end of October, like maybe on the 30th.
Okay, well then social media is the place to go to find out exactly when and what time. Where do you go to follow you guys?
We'll share about it soon on our social media, and we'll have it up on our website and stuff. And we're going to sell like tickets to it, but they're going to we're partnering with a bunch of venues that we would have been playing if not for coronavirus. So we're going to give our quote unquote ticket sales for the live show to the venues, and then we'll be playing for tips, basically, for donations.
This is why I love musicians. No matter what, always giving back. Thank you. That's an amazing thing to do. I just want to double check to make sure. Social media, where do we go to follow you guys, or your website?
Oh yeah, the website is mipsomusic.com, and that's MIPSO. And then we are at Mipso Music on Instagram and Twitter. And then you can find us at Mipso on Facebook as well.
Fantastic. Look, thank you so much for doing this interview with me, and especially taking time out from getting ready to record. Please say hello to the rest of the band members for me, and please be safe. But thank you so much for the music, because we definitely need that. Thank you again.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for talking to me, and you take care as well.
Be safe. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.